Hey guys, so this week I'll be answering the second prompt for this week's discussion question, and this is the one with use of technology in the classroom. And so I kind of have an interesting history with the use of technology in the schools that I've taught at. So before I moved to Korea, I was working at a school district in Oregon that I would say was very high tech. This school recognized the growing importance and competence with technology for students in the future, and they also recognized how able technology is to provide different kinds of supports for students who need it. So at this particular school, I wasn't working with EB students at all. Instead, I was kind of working in the SPED department, and I was working with a lot of students who were either on IEPs or had other like behavior and success plans. But working with them, I got to see firsthand just how beneficial technology can be. And even though I realized that working with EB students and working with SPED students is a completely different ballgame, I still got to see how useful and how beneficial technology is for providing students who need additional support. So flash forward, I moved to Korea, and the English Academy that I was working at had a completely different relationship with technology. And I think this is true at a lot of the academies out here. So despite how much I knew that technology was beneficial to students, and doing things like explaining abstract concepts or playing interactive games, or even like showing short clips on YouTube to facilitate understanding. Despite knowing all this, the administration at the school pretty much told us that we're not allowed to use any form of technology without prior permission. This includes computers, phones, anything like that. So what the school was worried about is that students would go home and tell their parents that their teachers let them watch YouTube, and then the parents would call in and complain that the teachers are just letting them watch YouTube. And so part of that comes from this kind of, I found there's almost this archaic kind of belief out here that still is around that using worksheets and textbooks is like the sole best way to learn. And so a lot of parents kind of stick to that idea. So I worked at that school for a few years, like 3 years, but I've since moved to a different one that kind of has a more understanding approach about how beneficial technology can be. So one of the things that has been really great for students here at this new school is that they are allowed to use a translating app when they want to express an idea and they just simply don't know the word. And even though I have gotten a little bit better at Korean, there are just some words that I just can't help them with. And this is something that Wright kind of talks about because it works for teachers as well. And this is something that Wright talked about in his book, is that, you can spend a few minutes of class time trying to explain an abstract concept or feeling or like mime it out, or you can just take 1 second with a translating app and just show the students, and then you'll usually get an audible ah from them. So also Wright talks a lot about like listening centers and how beneficial they can be to students because their recordings of books are able to model correct pronunciation and model correct like reading flow. And this is really good for students, especially for students who, at home, their parents don't speak English or can't speak English very well and aren't able to like help them with their homework or help them read stories. And so one of the things that my current school does really well is all of the students get given a CD that has audio recordings of all of the different stories we read in class. And generally part of their homework is to go home and listen to the story a few times before we even read it together in class. That way, if the story is difficult or if they have any questions, before we start this story, they at least have like a basic understanding of what the story is about. And I think that this is really beneficial to them. And as COVID hit here and, everyone moved to Zoom like they did all over the world, it was an even better opportunity for me to see how technology can really support these students. So, for me as a teacher, not only when I was teaching could I quickly pull up Google Images and show them something to help them understand new vocabulary that we were learning or new concepts that we were talking about. But one of the things that I also noticed was that students who were maybe shy about speaking out loud but still knew the answer, I would notice that they would still like private message me instead. And I thought that was a really cool opportunity for them to, show that they were listening and could understand, but maybe they didn't feel comfortable saying anything. And another thing is a lot of the students that I work with are really gifted artists, and maybe they couldn't explain what they wanted to, but they could also quickly draw it up on the screen. And so I thought Zoom was a really cool way for students to, really show me a lot of different levels of understanding that I hadn't seen before. And so that all being said, I think there are still definite opportunities at my current school to make better use of technology. But ultimately, since it is a private English academy, which is a business, incorporating the use of technology in the classroom requires parents to recognize the benefits and to kind of get on board with it. I do think, however, that, this year on Zoom has kind of changed the landscape and parents are more open to those kind of ideas. Thanks, guys.